October 23, 1944, the liberation of the Philippines started. On the deck of one of the liberation ships, Jonathan was holding on to the railings, and he was watching the damages that their cannons had done to the target on the shores. Jonathan pitied the Filipino civilians caught on the crossfires, but he knows it is a better pill that must be swallowed. It is the preparation for the landing of the liberation forces. The last cannon had just been fired, and the liberation forces were preparing to disembark their ships to establish a beachhead on Philippine shores. Before we go on with the full story, let me ask you one question. Ever pondered the face of your soulmate? Discover how it looks with a psychic-drawn soulmate sketch. Click on the link in the video description. I have tried this product and I know it delivers what it promises because this is what it gives me. It's spookily similar to my partner. We've been living happily for 25 years already. Full disclosure, for every order, I earn an affiliate commission that supports this channel. So back to our story. On October 20th, 1944, the Americans landed on the shores of the Philippines. A long, bloody battle for the liberation of the Philippines from the Japanese occupiers followed, which eventually led to the defeat of the Japanese forces. On August 15th, 1945, the Japanese army finally surrendered and the Philippines was liberated. On his bunk bed one night after the Philippines' liberation, Jonathan was deep in his thoughts. One question keeps populating his mind. Did Gali survive the war? If Gali survived, is it worth staying in the Philippines and leaving his homeland, his family and everything? But on the other hand, the prospect of being with Gali for the rest of his life weighed heavily on him. The thought occupied his mind until the light of dawn heralded the start of the following day. In the mountains of the Cordillera region, the Igorot, being a resilient people, had started rebuilding their lives. One morning, Gali tended to the vegetables she had planted weeks ago. When the scorching heat of the sun became unbearable, Gali found time to rest under the shade and to ponder. Would Jonathan find his way back to him, or had he found somebody else? The thought hurts her so much she feels her breathing constricted. Gali was so overwhelmed by her thoughts that her eyes stung. Tears had started to flow freely down her cheeks when the sound of gongs and drums announcing the arrival of some people interrupted her thoughts. Gali knows what it is right away. It is the Pangulo ritual. It is a kind of courtship practiced by the Igorots, and it means somebody within the immediate vicinity is being courted for marriage, and the gongs and drums are announcing the arrival of the intermediary or representative of the suitor. To her surprise, the party appears to be heading to her house, and she is the only eligible girl in her household. Somebody is proposing marriage to her, she concluded alarmingly. She knows she can't accept the proposal because she is committed to Jonathan. Her father accepted their gifts and offered the men wine, which in their tradition signifies the family is considering the proposal positively. Gali wanted to protest, but in the Igorot culture, the decision of the elders often prevails. The elders always know what is best. All these took place while Gali was crying silently in protest of the proceedings. He tried to talk to her father, voicing her disapproval. Her father pacified her, saying they wanted to meet the man first before they would decide. The following night, a plan to run away was hatched in Gali's mind. Gali disappeared into the darkness of the night. Dawn came. Gali had cautiously trotted the path leading to the lowlands for 4 hours already when she heard a group of men going in the direction where she came from. They were dressed in their best traditional attires and singing, incessantly beating drums and gongs. Concluding that it was the party of the man who wished to marry her, she immediately hid in the thick foliage and observed the oncoming party from her hiding place. Her heart started to beat uncontrollably when she saw a white man dressed in traditional Igorot formal attire. The white man dressed in the traditional formal attire was Jonathan. She immediately broke from her hiding and ran as fast as she could back to her home, and there she prepared herself amidst the confusion of her family of her actions. Her family had been looking for her that morning. Her father asks her what has come up to her. Her father has detected the unusual vibrance and happiness in her, that she seems to float away with her every move. The party arrived at Gali's house, and they presented their gifts to Gali's father. Customary to the Pangulo ritual, Gali was required to stay in her room. She was listening to the proceedings in the living room. Meanwhile, Jonathan, ignorant of the Igorot culture, was wondering about Gali's absence. It is customary in Igorot culture for the elders to take the reign in appraising the suitor, and the girl takes the backstage. When Gali heard Jonathan's voice asking her whereabouts, Gali broke out of her room involuntarily, and against the norms of the Pangulo courtship ritual, hugged Jonathan. Her sobs racked her body convulsively because of intense emotion. "I have never doubted your promise," Gali told Jonathan, "and it leads to Gali and Jonathan's union in marriage." They married in the Igorot traditional marriage ceremony according to the wishes of the elders. Jonathan chose to stay in the Philippines after the war, and he became a Filipino citizen because of his marriage to Gali. They lived happily and led a fruitful life in the Philippines.